Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, and wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Leno, and the effervescent Evan Ginsberg. So, the effervescent one. You ever thought about going to the ring? Is that when you manage?
That would be a good gimmick.
Yes. Speaking of good gimmicks, I just got done wrestling, being a manager over in Gilroy for Wrestling for Charity, and I got back to shouting at fans and telling them how much I hated them. And
let's tell people Gilroy's famous for garlic. They have an annual garlic festival. They have a whole amusement park that used to be something else, but it was built maybe 20, 30 years ago. And
they have a mass shooting.
All natural.
They also have a mass shooting involved.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do you remember?
But it still has. They transferred to these 1930s Robert Ripley, believe it or not, trees, incredible, goofy trees that they have like encircling each other. The branches go around the trunk. It's hard to describe, but the whole amusement park is kind of based on ecology, and it's actually fun. It's not preachy or anything like that. And they have log flume rides and all that stuff, but it does have some underlying themes of teaching kids to conserve and all of that sort of stuff, and to protect wildlife. And so Gilroy is in Northern California, and it's a really kind of a cool town.
Yeah, it's about about an hour and a half south of San Jose.
And they have wineries. That's the cool or the neat thing about lots of parts of California. There's wineries depending on the climate, and but Evan,
it was great getting back to ringside again, though. I will say that one of my friends
who was on the show. Tell us if you can remember the results, Russ.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there were a lot of people that aren't really all that famous. Like there were some young kids doing some of their first gimmicks, but of the people that were there, I managed this kid as he is Leopardo Loco, the man who thinks he's a leopard, and that's great lucha stick for me, and that was really fun. There were a couple other guys that, I mean, nobody has ever heard of. Arcade, not Ryan Cade, but another guy named Arcade, and another guy named I'm trying to remember, but the bigger names were Boyce LeGrand was on the show, and Boyce LeGrand
from APW.
Yeah, he's been wrestling in the Bay Area for decades, and I worked with him at All Pro Wrestling, and he even was on he was either on SmackDown or was it WCW's Nitro? Was he on Nitro?
No, it was Nitro. Yeah, it was Nitro.
He was on Nitro. So he's had a little bit of actual on TV experience, and I managed him for a 3-way match, which was really fun. But just a friend of mine asked me, he said, "Do you have to get into character? Do you have to And I said, "I'm ready to be Buddy Sotelo, literally on a moment's notice." So there's no rehearsing. When you are a pro wrestling manager, even once, you know what you're doing to the point where you could do it 20 years later and it would just roll right off the back of your roll off your back. It's just, it's not like bumping, that's for sure. I made sure to know, to the guys, no dive outs, no punches, nothing. I'm not even capable of doing the fall down sell that, I used to be able to do. Because that's one of the things that I said is great about being a manager, is that all you have to do is take the slightest hit, sell it like $1 million, and you don't have to take the incredibly huge bumps that wrestlers do, because you're not supposed to beat up wrestlers or be tough enough to stop a wrestler. So one little quick punch to the face, and you can sell that for 15 minutes, and guys that have to take care of it in the ring. But there were probably about 3,000 people at the festival. Probably a good 500-600 of them were watching us do our thing in the middle of 6th Street in downtown Gilroy. We actually had the intersection blocked off for the wrestling ring.
Was this a street fair or a county fair or something like that?
The La Ofrenda Festival, and they really liked us. They'd like to have us back there again next year. I mean, we'll see where I am with everything, but I'd love to be able to do it again because it was just a lot of fun and meeting a lot of people that I hadn't seen.
Who was the promoter? Butch?
Yeah, Butch Hogg has been on the show with Wrestling for Charity right up there. And Big Ugly was there with his youngest son, and his youngest son was in the ring. We will be having Big Ugly on here as a guest pretty soon. I did tell him that I want him on the show. His son Titus is doing wrestling.
Well, just tell JD Big Ugly that I'm on, and he and I go back to about 1994 as friends.
He knows about the show. He knows about the show. I told him all about it. So
he's a good dude, very smart wrestling wise. Evan met him. Evan, when you came out to APW, I would hear, and you met awful lot of folks. You might not be able to place him, but very good guy.
I managed
to run Sacramento wrestling.
I managed him over at the California Championship Wrestling. He was one of my actual wrestlers that I had, which it was a great angle that we did. So anyway, that's what's been, and then I got to say this already to the viewers. On Wednesday, I have my shoulder replacement. So
this Wednesday?
Yeah, this Wednesday. So I'm not sure if I'll be in shape to do a show on Sunday or not. We'll just have to see.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well, you had much more complicated situation going on, and you're doing well. So I hope my doctor's at least as good as yours.
That's Mike he's referring to, not me.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if Evan. I was going to say the election last Tuesday. We don't need to go into specifics. Was a horror show, but I enjoyed the build up to Halloween. I taped both Dr. Phibes movies last night that were on Svengoolie and watched the first one. I hadn't seen it in ages, and what a Vincent Price. There was nothing that actor could not do, and that everything he did was entertaining, and he could do serious stuff, comedy.
He defines horror, though. I mean, you can't. Yeah, I mean, if you were to look up horror in the dictionary, Vincent Price.
Well, look who picked him. The two biggest guys. Michael Jackson tapped him for Thriller to do that scene, and also the famous director who did Beetlejuice, but for Edward Scissorhands,
Tim Burton.
Yeah, Tim Burton had Vincent Price in his very last role play Johnny Depp's father. The Frankenstein guy who creates his son in Edward Scissorhands. So yeah, Vincent Price. And if folks out there have not seen the Wax Museum, that might be one of Vincent Price's best.
The House of Wax.
Fantastic.
The House of Wax.
House of Wax. You're right. The House of Wax. Incredible.
Incredible. I'm the horror guy in this group.
My mother was there.
I love horror.
That thing came out. No, my mom was at the premiere at Grauman's when that thing came out, and she ran out of the theater. She said towards the end it was just too much for her in the 50s. So
since I didn't have you guys on the show with Jeannie Bassone, where I talked to her, we can talk a little bit of horror, now during this.
I just saw Terrifier 3 the other day.
Well, how was it? What was your thought?
My thought was, as an old school horror fan, for the villain to do horrible, horrible things throughout the movie, mangling all these lovely people, and to just walk away, with no punishment or whatnot. It doesn't feel like an emotional payoff, but it's done.
Kind of like the election.
What's that?
Kind of like the election.
So I'm watching Terrifier 3, and the gore is over the top to the point of cartoonish. Chris Jericho has a cameo in it. He's one of the victims.
Oh, he's one of the producers. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, he's one of the producers. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I basically enjoy it. The guy who plays Art the Clown is great because he's really creepy, and he doesn't talk. He's a mime, and so
the guy's tremendous. On the Captain Spaulding scale?
It's apples and oranges. They're both great.
Captain Spaulding, I think, is the scariest clown of all. So, and I haven't seen any of the Terrifier films, so I probably have to,
Yeah, basically the guy does horrendous things in every movie, and then he just like gets away with it. So there's no
kind of
payoff.
like Saw. It sounds a lot like Saw.
Oh, gee, it sounds like Trump to me.
Yes, absolutely, guys. Yes.
I'll say that. Wait a minute. What role does Chris Jericho play in this, Ev?
He's one of the victims.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh. That's always been a bucket list of mine. Is to be a victim in a horror movie. Oh, I would love that.
I was in an indie horror film. Yeah.
I know you've already lived out a number of bucket list things that I wish.
But the funny thing was, they kept throwing me to the ground, this vampire, and by the time I was done, my shoulder actually hurt. So it was like taking bumps.
Multiple people do not realize how many takes you have to do so many times to get the right.
I want
to throw it. Go ahead.
Chris Anino did a zombie movie where I was shooting zombies. I wasn't a victim. Yes.
Let me throw out two films that I loved that I rewatched right before Halloween. One was I think it was Brian De Palma's very first horror one, Sisters, about the Siamese twins with Margot Kidder, which is absolutely incredible for that time, 1973.
Sisters is great. Yeah.
We saw that a zillion times, me and the Dawson kids at that point. And then, oh gosh, now I'm spacing on. I should have written the other one down. Evan, what are some of your favorites? I mean, you know everything: British horror, Hammer films, all those great.
Well, I love Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee. That was the best. That was the best Hammer.
He was the best Dracula, in my opinion. I think Christopher Lee was.
Christopher Lee was great, and anything.
Well, it is hard to beat Bela Lugosi, who died halfway through Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah.
And so Ed Wood, the director, replaced him with his dentist, who just held up part of his cape.
Had his cape up over his nose most of the.
That is a film that is so good that the director that you just mentioned,
Ed Wood,
who did Ed Wood, the film is so good. And Bill Murray's in it. Sarah Jessica Parker. That is one amazing film. I don't know if both you guys have you seen the Ed Wood biopic that's about 5 years old.
No,
Evan, did you see it?
I'll tell you why. I have an amazing story about that. So we had just done The Wrestler, and the Ed Wood people contacted me. They go, "Who would be a good guy to play Tor Johnson?" And I go, "George the Animal Steel." And the guy goes, no, he's too old. I go, "He looks just like him. So they take the contact info from me, and I said, give me a thank you credit or whatnot. And as far as I know, it never happened. So I always had, so technically I helped cast that thing. And
from me to you, that was brilliant. He was so perfect.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I forget who played Vampira.
How hard is it to give somebody a thank you credit? You're not even asking. All I did was give him a phone number.
Wow. Well,
wait, who played Vampira in that movie? Because there was some legal stuff where she tried to sue Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira, because it was a total knockoff of the 50s and late 40s Vampira TV and film.
Except Vampira wasn't funny; she was serious.
Yeah.
She didn't have
the whole the Morticia Addams look.
Yes, I mean that's the whole thing. Is I don't think she won because that's sort of like and you look at Yvonne DiCarlo from the Munsters.
That is Howard Stern says that is the greatest television show of all time. It's hard to dispute that amongst, Seinfeld, all the other great stuff. But the crazy thing was, as a kid, I'm older than both you guys, that year, the Addams Family and the Munsters came out. Munsters were on CBS, Addams Family, ABC, same year, like 1963, 64. And that was when TV was all fantasy junk. I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, My Living Doll with Julie Newmar, who I didn't know went to my same high school. You know,
Outer Limits.
Oh,
Twilight
what
Zone.
Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, but in some ways, Outer Limits is even way scarier than Twilight Zone. There wasn't a bad episode ever
Lost
in the Twilight
Space
Zone.
was a big deal then. Lost in Space.
There was the TV was really fun.
Time
maybe
Tunnel.
to take us a. Which one? Time Tunnel?
Time Tunnel. Yeah.
James Darren just died.
Time Tunnel. Another good one was Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. All of that stuff is on Sunday nights tonight on Me TV network. Time Tunnel, the
Voice to the Bottom of the Sea.
all of those ABC classes. Yeah, that one. Yeah. The
Yeah,
Fugitive, which was awesome. If you've ever seen the closing episode, and at that point before the MASH season ender, the Fugitive season ender drew the largest number of TV in history, and I think it was 1967. And the one-armed man falling off of the high tower, and he was the real murderer. You know, that was the thing that begat the Harrison Ford Fugitive movie.
Spoiler alert for something a 50-year-old.
Who cares if it's something that happened 60 years ago? No one's going to give two shits, but that is a great series. I don't know, Ev, if you ever were caught on The Fugitive, but it was an awesome, great acting.
A big deal back in the day.
My
favorite series from the 60s was The Prisoner. The Prisoner with Patrick.
Oh, that was a great one.
That was unbelievable.
Yep.
That was
having been born in '67, it's a little.
But that came after his great series, Secret Agent Man, where the Johnny Rivers song was used in that. And Peter Gunn.
I got to see everything in reruns, so even though I didn't get to see it live, I got to see all these same shows.
Prisoner was only 17 episodes. You could catch it anytime. It's tremendous.
The first one was a masterpiece. The very first to start it off, and it was always confusing. It was horrible. But those British shows, like what was the one with Patrick McNee, The Avengers with Diana Rigg? Man, with that was as good as it gets.
I got a Patrick
awesome
McNee story. So I'm 12 years old, and my parents take me to Broadway, and there was a play called Sleuth, and Patrick McNee was the lead. So my parents take me to the stage door, and all of a sudden Patrick McNee comes out, and he literally pats me on the head. I'm a kid, and it's like I'm being knighted, the guy has the British accent, and I'm like marking out because I've seen him on TV in The Avengers, so it was one of the things that made me love theater, waiting by the stage door and and meeting these people, meeting legends, it's
it sort of loops back around to when I was doing my thing in Gilroy. We would do a match and then do one match per hour. And in between the matches, people were coming up to the ring and just oohing and awing, just because a lot of people have never been close to a wrestling ring before. When you go to a WWE show, they don't let you walk up to the actual ring and look at it. And there was a father and his daughter that he was just like, this is so cool, this is so neat. And we were able to let them pose with a belt and one of the masked wrestlers, and both for him and his daughter, it meant a whole lot to be able to meet, even though we're not famous and we're not in the WWE, just to be seen with wrestlers and take a picture with them was something that made them so happy, and I was really happy to do that for them.
Let me throw this in. My oldest friend, who's also a dentist like Mike, Scott Bernstein, his nephew, by sheer coincidence, has the same birthday as me, and his entire childhood, we took him to Ring of Honor and Indies. We never took him to WWE. So this kid saw, Kevin Steen and Bryan Danielson and all these guys before they got to WWE. And now he's in his 20s and he's studying to be a lawyer. But my point being, you take kids to an indie show, one night.
Tell him there's still time for him to try another profession.
Yeah, but my point is, instead of spending thousands of dollars, you could go down to the local indie and spend $20, and the kid could meet the wrestlers and pose with them and get
our
autographs.
show was free. Our show was totally
Yeah.
It's
even
much
better.
better wrestling. You know, somebody's bitching online and then on the Busted Open Sirius XM show that it's $2,000 for nosebleed seats to WrestleMania next year. They have upped the prices to such a ridiculous level.
Well, don't be a money mark and take that money and go to 100 indies instead.
I have a question for you. I have a question for both of you. Other than the title match, name me one thing that happened in the last WrestleMania.
Well, the tag team on night one, the tag team match was the main event, which was historic because they hadn't had a tag main since WrestleMania 1 with Piper and Hogan and all of that.
You know what? If that
I can name quite a few
Gunther and
matches.
Sami Zayn, was it?
was it okay? But what I'm saying is, you guys have to like think hard about like something.
No, I could take a Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. No, you know, I mean, it is embedded.
I couldn't pick those matches apart now, a year later.
It wasn't Charlotte and Rhea Ripley last year.
Yeah, not last year. Not last
This
year.
year. I'm talking this year.
No, it wasn't Charlotte and Rhea Ripley.
Well, who was
I
it
don't
this
think
year?
so.
It was
Bailey.
Rhea Ripley and Bailey, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was Bailey in the match.
No,
So
no,
this
it wasn't Rhea and Bailey. No, it might have been the blonde, Liv Morgan and Rhea. That's been the feud for much of this year.
You're getting your vanilla
Well, maybe that was last year.
pay-per-views confused.
Charlotte, that was Los Angeles. That was last year because I was at that one. Charlotte and Rhea. Okay, that was a good match. Well, so I remember.
My point has been made, very well made. That really, other than like the main event, the other nine
Evan's right. That was right
they
because Sammy took the strap from Gunther, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but the fact is that there were 19 other matches over 2 days, and you have a hard time picking one out
You
of them.
put $1 million cash in front of me, I couldn't name those 19 matches.
Nor can I, or even remember what the results were. It's become just a giant blur of like, stuff. And so,
but Russ, you do have to be appreciative of the fact Vince is gone, and now the booking is much better. The matchups are much better. The TV is watchable.
I don't think it's much better. I think 90% of what Vince churned out was crap, and I think 80% of what Triple H turns out is crap. I don't think it's. I was just watching that Crown Jewel last week, and
well, that's a throwaway. Yeah, it's a throwaway.
Gunther and Cody were the only thing really worth seeing. Roman Reigns comes out. They have an instantly forgettable 6-man match. The guy barely wrestles. If you're going to wrestle a handful of times a year, at least come out and put out an effort.
Yeah, and what is considered a pay-per-view is really just a Raw or a SmackDown that they're charging a lot more money for now. I mean, the matches are so forgettable and have no impact on like what the WWE's destiny is. They usually either show all the matches the next Raw or the next SmackDown in little snippets. Yeah, in replays. So you're going to see them. What?
Or a rematch.
Or a rematch, exactly. Just that wind up having a rematch, which is really just lazy ass booking.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Night one was The Rock and Roman Reigns against Cody, and who was Cody's partner anyway?
You see, this
it was Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins.
But this is how forgettable all of it is. It just is this like.
Well, because the hard thing is we have wrestling every night of the week. There's AEW has 3 nights out of the week: Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Impact TNA is Thursdays. They all have pay-per-views, and it's always
I barely watch any of it.
Yeah, and once the one pay-per-view is done, then it's on to the next. So
here's the point that I'm trying to make, and please follow this. The WWE, it's like a Thanksgiving dinner that has 800 side dishes. Okay, you at the time that you're done eating all the side dishes, you don't even know which meal you really liked. Find 5 matches in a pay-per-view. Do 5 matches, or 6, okay? 3 intermission.
Well,
3.
they did that at Crown Jewel. There were only like 5, and other than the one main, the rest of them sucked.
But that's the thing. You have to make
Evan,
sure.
so the Liv
matches that
Morgan
you put
versus
on,
Nia Jax.
You got to make sure that the
champion,
6
that
matches
wasn't
are
that good
great
either.
matches. You got to do.
Evan, how was the women's?
It was mediocre at best.
Yeah,
They had a
it's
goof-
you concentrate.
goof
You sit there and you say, how can we make the 6 matches we have the best 6 matches we can come up with as a booking team? Not we're gonna have 3 schmo matches, and then out of the 2 matches that we have before the main event, we're gonna have at least 1 3-way match, which I think is the worst booking you can possibly get.
AEW does way too much of the 3-man stuff.
It makes me
much.
just want to gag to death.
Well, see,
Over
that's the difference between the 2 companies. Is WWE, they're focused more on storyline than great matches. AEW, they're getting better at having some storylines. They don't have anything that's even coming close to the bloodline, but they throw out the great matches. But then a lot of them that they could take time building. They just throw out there Ospreay against Ricochet.
But the
that should have been a
storylines in
pay-per-view
the
match.
WWE are infantile sometimes. That's the problem. Is that the storylines seem to be stuff that my kids are 13 and they could write better storylines than what we see in the WWE. Yes, they
maybe
have
not.
them.
Maybe not the bloodline stuff. That's been pretty good. They've been
The
slow.
bloodline stuff is played out already, though.
Yeah, it's so old. It's been around for 4 or 5 years now.
They bring in.
Nothing in wrestling has been around that long, other than like Bruno Kowalski and the longtime feuds. There's really nothing else.
There's a
Like
reason
Bobo
why. There's a
Bobo and the
reason why
Sheik.
stuff doesn't last that long. 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, but you're not looking at the big picture. WWE is making more money than they ever have. They're making everything is up. They're for good or bad. Their TV ratings, their buy rates, the money intake, merch.
I wonder what it'll be like when they move to Netflix, because a lot of people don't have Netflix, and then the WWE isn't going to be in front of their face as often.
Yeah, but they will be globally. They won't have to be on all these schmucky little companies around the world, to cast all these TV deals. That's the thing. In the U.S., I think older folks, I've never had Netflix, ever. I'm going to have to get it, but there are many others that won't within the U.S., but globally more, they can reach more people, they are claiming, through Netflix, because everybody around the world has Netflix. I don't know what the true numbers are.
Yeah, but will they watch? There's a million gajillion things to watch on Netflix, Why watch?
One thing I'm going to be watching this Friday, I hope Evan will be too, is it's Logan Paul's brother taking on Tyson. The friend next door is getting it. I don't have Netflix, but I want to see the fight. I want to see some of the undercard matches. I want to see the Vince documentary. I guess it's, Evan, how many parts is it? 4 or 6?
6.
6. Have you watched it?
Oh yeah,
there wasn't anything you didn't know on there, right? You knew all that stuff for the most part.
Yes and no. Factually, yes, but Vince, to actually see Vince's reactions and his actual statements on certain things were very foretelling and went to a level at which I think a lot of people didn't realize, like how cold-blooded Vince really is in person. To hear him say stuff right from his own mouth, especially like after Owen Hart's death, that he did insist that the show went on, and that if the same thing happened to him, he would have wanted the show to go on as well. It shows
nobody would have given 2 shits if Vince croaked, as opposed to.
But it just shows that's
like
the kind of cold-bloodedness that he has. That the show to him is everything. And then
Evan, what did you think of the docus?
I haven't watched it because he creeps me out, and it would be painful to watch 6 hours looking at that.
There's some painful stuff in all of this, especially his denial of it. And at the end, they asked Vince McMahon what he wants to be known about. And one of the things that's really disturbing, but almost worth watching the documentary for, is when he proudly proclaims, he's like, oh, I'm a leader of an industry. I made, wrestling what it is today, and I'm sexually active.
Yeah.
Like, that was an important part for him to throw in there of how he wants people to remember him. That as a 78-year-old man, he's proud to be sexually active. It's like, you're being brought up on sexual harassment charges, which, by the way, thanks to Trump becoming president, will never see the light of day now. And I hate to say that Monty and the Pharaoh got everything they wanted out of this situation, but they did. That Vince is not going to face even 1 second of justice for anything that he did. And that whole investigation.
And Linda McMahon is part of Trump's transition.
It'll all just disappear like it never happened. That whole thing will just go under the rug. Vince will just throw some money at the problem like he always has.
Oh,
you know, every single episode of that Vince McMahon documentary ends with the screen going black and saying, fill in the blank, settled out of court with Vince McMahon. Like, whatever the subject of the 6 episodes were, the subject of that episode wound up settling with Vince McMahon for an undetermined amount of money.
Russ, so, I've got to go in about 3-4 minutes. My throat's starting to hurt. But the movie I was trying to think that I rewatched, you can watch it online. It's Deranged from about 1974, the Ed Gein story. Have either one of you guys seen it? Evan, you might have seen it.
Never saw that.
That one is must see because the lead guy who murders all these beautiful, it's pretty horrific. He played the silent good neighbor in Home Alone, the old man down the street. So we were just marking out when we saw, that the first time, the Home Alone, we're going, this dude was slicing up girls and putting them in his refrigerator.
Well, that's an actor. You could play heel or face. I just want to mention, I saw Robert Zemeckis is here with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. I saw it today, and I understand the criticisms of it. It's a camera that's just pointed at this room, and you see the inhabitants of this house over 200 years, including the Tom Hanks and Robin Wright couple. And it feels like you're watching a play rather than a movie, but some of the moments are just beautiful, poignant. I thought it was great. I mean, I understand like Aronofsky's The Whale. I mean, it was a play that he turned into a movie, and they shot it during COVID, and it felt kind of like you're watching a play. But Brendan Fraser was so great, it was worth watching, and Tom Hanks and Robin Wright are so great that it's worth watching. I would recommend here, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it 36%. I think it's absurd. It was just beautiful. Some of it.
Was there any reference to the fact that they were, of course, in Forrest Gump together?
They promoted it as such. They said from the director, writer and stars of Forrest Gump. And I think it worked against them because the expectations were so high. The movie's not on the level of Forrest Gump, but there's some great moments in here. And anybody that's lost a relative, a friend, a spouse. Mike, just the other day, Dale Pierce's widow, Rainbow, she was a heel manager also. Right. She was saying how much she missed Dale on the 7th anniversary of his death. So anybody that's lost a spouse, this movie is, this is for adults. It's not for kids. There's no car chases. There's no superheroes. There's no monsters. It's real life, painful stuff. I recommend it.
Well, Evan knows this stuff. Guys, I'm going to have to go. Good night, my friends.
Feel better, Mike.
Yeah, talk to you later, Mike.
Okay.
Good night.
See you next week, hopefully. Speaking of anniversaries, and I should have said something while Mike was on, I believe either today or tomorrow is the anniversary of Mark Smith's death.
Yeah. See, this is what happens that people don't understand. When you're friends with people with any level of fame, you're continually reminded, this is the anniversary of Mark Smith's death. This is the anniversary of Nikolai's death, Johnny Valiant, Lanny Poffo, the anniversary of when they won some major title, the anniversary of this or that. You're constantly reminded. It's
You know what's frightening is that I'm getting to the point where Mark's been gone longer than when I actually knew him.
Yeah. I'll tell you a crazy story. I do Tai Chi in the park almost every day.
We're gonna have to start.
Yeah, mostly Asian seniors, and this one woman happened to have the same birthday as me, and I said to her, "Happy birthday!" And she's 86 years old, and she started telling me how she was friends with Bruce Lee, friends with him.
Wow.
No, and she says to me, quote, "He was a rascal as a teenager. He was always in trouble." That's the word she used, rascal. You know? So I mean, I look at Bruce Lee like some half god, you know,
Yes.
and like this was her buddy, you know. He's a person like anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. Well, and when you kind of reminded about it when you when I went back to go to Gilroy and just, seeing the whole new generation of wrestlers and new kids that are so excited about being just being in the ring, just, getting one of their first bit for all the guys that were in that show. That was the biggest show they'd ever been part of. And it was really in like the top 5 of like biggest crowds that I've ever performed in front of. I mean, especially when you consider like a whole group left and then a whole nother group came in to watch a different match an hour later. So we probably were seen by about 3,000 different people,
Right. Look, yeah. Johnny Valiant used to say, "Enjoy the ride."
And
say to me, it's not about the money.
Yeah, no, Butch wanted to pay me, and I was like, you know what? Keep the money and have it go back into the Fed so that, we can afford to do future shows. I'd rather, at this stage, what's $50 going to be to me? Pays maybe for half the gas that it took to drive down there. And you know what? At this stage of my life, that's not what's important to me. As I'm getting older, not that I'm, where you and Mike are, but as I'm getting older, it means more to me to do the things that make me happy than it is to do the things that make me money. And I guess that, sets me apart from people like Elon Musk and like, Jeff Bezos and Trump and some other folks, where money is an ends and not a means to an end. I've always felt money was a means to an end, that money got you places that you wanted to go and took care of things you wanted to take care of. But the acquisition of money for the sake of acquiring money has never been an attraction to me. I've never felt that. And, in some ways that ostracizes me from the current mindset of the United States, which, I don't mind standing on a soapbox just saying, fucking the election sucked royal ass. I'm furious that Kane, The Undertaker, and Hulk Hogan wind up being totally in control of us. And, anyone with any kind of intellect has been pushed to the side and made feel like, we're outsiders in our own country. I feel like it's Fortress California and Fortress New York, and in between there is the friggin' cursed earth. I mean, you're not a Judge Dredd fan, but if you were, you'd follow what the cursed earth was all about. When they made Judge Dredd, the authors of Judge Dredd looked at the population concentrations and said, what if just California was a giant city, New York and like the East Coast was a giant city, and the rest of the United States was a nuclear wasteland? What kind of stories would you be able to write up with it? And of course, being British, they absolutely pegged what the United States would be like in something like that. But what were you about to say?
If I spoke my mind on politics, I would have the extreme right and the extreme left all furious at me, because I see the hypocrisy on both ends. And I'm very disappointed. Coming from a different generation, I'm disappointed in young people who are corporate apologists. Oh, they all do it. Greed is good. It's all about the bottom line. Happy birthday, Vince. We love you, Vince.
You're my God. You're my God. Why they conflate anyone? How you can conflate another human being into a God for yourself? There's a problem right there. There's a problem right there. You can admire guys. Look, I'm a huge Bay Area sports fan. I love Steph Curry. Okay, he's won 4 championships. He took the Warriors from being an absolute joke of a franchise to being a legendary franchise, one that now everyone looks to being, one of the best in the NBA. He's still not a god to me, okay? He's not a god. He's a regular human being that just is really good at basketball. And that's all he is.
When you turn money into your god, that becomes the problem. With age comes some degree of wisdom, hopefully. And what you learn. I'm
not sure about that now.
What you learn is family, friends, helping others, some degree of spirituality, following your muse. This is what makes you happy. They've done scientific studies. If you get a raise and you're making $5,000 more a year, that's not going to make you happy. What they did find was if your salary doubles and you have less stress and you don't have to worry about bills, you will be happier. But money in and of itself is not the be all and end all.
But it is for some people. It really is. For some people,
that's because they're not enlightened. But
there's you give somebody $5,000 raise and they're fine with it until they find out that the person next to them got $5,000 and 1 cent. And now that the other person has 1 cent more than you go home and go, God damn it, that's my job sucks and I hate everybody because this person next to me got the 1 cent raise over what I got. And that's one problem. That's the problem I think with this country, is that we've gotten to the point where that sort of comparison of money, where you can't be happy with what you have. You're only happy when you have what the other person used to have. And you had to take it from that person.
4 out of 5 Americans hate their jobs. There's a 42% divorce rate. So if you look at the statistics, there are plenty of people that go from a job they hate home to somebody they hate. So you can make all the money in the world, and in that scenario, you're not going to be happy. So, what I found really appalling about all of this, and I'm not going to limit it to Trump, because to me, Trump is just like any Connie indie wrestling promoter. I have no great hatred for the guy, but I basically, when I saw, for example, all of these women saying when the whole Cosby thing was going down, quote, all those women are gold diggers, bitches and hoes. That's women talking about other women. And then the spin became, some white secret cabal is trying to bring down Dr. Huxtable. I mean, when you see hardworking, honest people defending, the alleged villains in these scenarios, and then you could lump in all these other guys, And I did say,
and tie it back into Vince McMahon,
Well, that's what I'm saying. That you get all of these alleged. I use the word alleged. All these alleged abusers, and just fight for them. Hardworking, honest people. Oh, all these women are gold diggers and liars. They can't all be liars. So you know what I'm saying?
But we live in a conspiracy theory world where it is all of that, and that you can just make those baseless allegations, and if you repeat them and you shout them at other people, then America thinks you're right. It doesn't matter if you've made it up or it's something that comes out of thin air. If you can just put out the conspiracy theory out there and let the rumor mill do its job and churn what your mistruth is into a truth. It's Orwellian, it's what, Hitler had said, a lie repeated often enough becomes the truth. That is where we are right now. I really feel like we live in a country that it doesn't really matter what you say, as long as you say it as hard as you can with all, your strength and might. It doesn't matter that you're wrong.
But if 80 women accuse a guy of something, even if 79 are lying, if one is telling the truth, then the guy's guilty.
Right. Well, not anymore. It's not. All he has to do is just say he's not. And if he's rich enough and has enough powerful friends, he's not guilty of anything, ever.
But my disappointment, when I was a kid, we had a song, the Isley Brothers, Fight the Power. Now they want to be the power. They want to be the man. They want to be the CEO. Back in the day, these were not the good guys. These were not the heroes. These were the villains. And if you didn't have that video of P. Diddy, stomping that poor woman, they'd be defending him too. All these women are gold diggers, and
And he still probably won't serve any real time because
he's been in jail a few months already now.
But he'll find some way now with Trump involved to probably throw his money at it. And, like everybody that's rich and famous, you never really get punished for anything that you do.
His empire has crumbled. He's never, this guy's not going to get endorsements, and he's done.
I hope so, but right now I don't get that feeling like there's justice in if you have enough money, you don't really get what's coming to you.
Weinstein went to jail, and Weinstein has done plenty of time. So on occasion they do punish.
Well, with the different. But I think now the mindset in America is just that, if you've got the money, you're good, and you can't do any wrong. Your money proves what a good person you are and how you haven't done. You're a success. Money proves you're a success, and if you don't have money, you're a failure. And that really upsets me. That is really a terrible situation. I know a lot of people may watch this and go, hey, that doesn't have anything to do with wrestling. And it probably doesn't. But it is. This show is also about how I feel about things and what's on my mind. And, I can't just watch wrestling and in the forefront, and look at The Undertaker the same way that I've looked at The Undertaker before. I can't look at
The Undertaker selling $3,000 toast at personal appearances and $1,000 cameos and autographs for hundreds of dollars. He's a greed monger, but
Hogan is right there.
Yeah, Hogan was getting $425 an autograph, and people defend it. Oh, that's capitalism. what the market will bear. And how about you just fucking greedy? You're just greedy. But they're, to some people, they're sacred, and you can't say anything bad about them. Then you're the villain, or you're jealous. It's always you're jealous.
Yeah.
How about taking a chunk of that money, you're multimillionaires, and help set up a pension? Help set up a fund, so your fellow legends and pioneers don't end up broken, needing a GoFundMe to be buried or to save your house at the end. I mean,
doesn't matter anymore. Now we live in an environment where when that stuff happens, Americans are looking at those people and saying, instead of saying, how can we help you? They're saying, you deserve it. You deserve to have that happen to you. You spend it on wine, women, and song, like we've talked about, and it's all your fault. You didn't you didn't invest in the stock market.
But
so.
you see, they're just churning out propaganda because many of the old school wrestlers never broke $100,000. They were living on the road. They were supporting their family back home. They didn't have health insurance. You're talking every day, hotels and gas and meals, and they just don't grasp any of it. And yeah, some people pissed away money, but a lot of them never made the money the fans think they made. People think just because you're on TV or you're in a movie or involved in a movie, you're incredibly wealthy, and it's just not the case. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of conventions where I book wrestlers, and most of these guys were getting paid a couple of $100, a couple $100.
If that.
No, and they needed it. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't like they were doing
right.
it.
And then
fun.
for every 500 of them, one of them maybe makes it, or 1,000, or 10,000, or 1,000,000.
I mean, today a WWE star is making good money, or an AEW star is making good money, but the vast majority of wrestlers throughout history didn't. And the territories guys, they struggle to survive. I mean,
And the billions that WWE is worth, it does make you shake your head.
Yeah,
anyway.
Triple H comes out at these press scrums after the pay-per-views, after they jack up the prices obscenely, and talks about record-breaking gates. And meanwhile, Billy Graham and Virgil and Bushwhacker, Butch. Luke's still alive.
Oh yeah, Butch, yes.
But they all needed GoFundMes at the end.
Yeah, well, and then after the Triple H will announce the record-setting pay-per-view, 30 wrestlers will be let go the next day. Right for it's the holidays, so get ready for them to do another heartwarming. You get your everything put in a trash bag and put it like they did with Mickey James, and put outside your office and told you happy future, best of luck in your future endeavors.
I get people that get angry at me for being critical of WWE. It's like you kick their granny. It's a ruthless billion-dollar organization that should do better. The NFL has a fund for their legends and pioneers at this point, because those guys back in the day made no money also. These guys were making $35,000 a year. Back in the 70s, when late 60s, back in the late 60s, Tom Seaver made headlines because he got $100,000 a year, and people were jealous. They were jealous.
Oh yeah, I remember Tim Koncak was the first NBA player to have a $2 million contract, and people went completely insane. Now you literally can't, like the lowest paid player is paid $1.5 million in an NBA season. So, it's a different world out there, and it's a tougher world out there thanks to everything that happened on Tuesday. But we'll get through it. We got through. This show came in from it existed because of everything that happened in 2020. So, if it survived 2020 and so forth, it'll survive hopefully through 2028. Let's just hope that we're still around when 2028 rolls around. Anyway, it's about an hour, so why don't you go ahead and plug the memory? Well, I guess because unfortunately, hey, and if anyone out there knows how to deal with monetization policies of Google, please, or of Facebook, please email us, because we're the Evans Pro Wrestling Memories. Your
Evan Ginsberg's Old School Wrestling Memories. We have some tech issues.
Yeah, we got some
issues.
Reach
out to me.
That knows how to negotiate with Facebook. We could use some help. So, just throwing it out there.
And check out Pro Wrestling Stories. Yours truly, the senior editor, and Check out Wrestling Then and Now, the documentary with Killer Kowalski, Nikolai Volkov, and of course 350 Days.
Yeah, now more than ever, 350 Days, I think, is a relevant film for people to watch. And I was telling everyone at the Gilroy Festival to go see that because
5-6 years into it, we're still like in the top 100 of DVDs and Blu-rays. It's amazing. I mean, it's timeless. It's
worth it. It's a message. It's a timeless message that gets more timely as time goes on, I think.
I would say half of the legends, we have about 36 legends, and they are gone now, about half. Billy Graham, Mosca, George Steele, Larry Sharp, Snooker. Oh, my God, one after another. They're gone. Orndorff, half Lanny Poffo, Nikolai. Yeah. They're all in it, and they're gone now.
So watch them while you can. Anyway, thank you for being here this week. Thanks for listening to my kvetching. Normally, you call it therapy for yourself, but it's therapy for me too.
All right, guys.
Good night, everybody. See you next week. Hopefully, one-arm version of myself.